Welcome to Sounding Board, a production of Seroptimus International of Novato. I'm Barbara Herwick, and I'll be your host. Today we'll be talking to Jenny and Jason Doherty, educators from the Bay Area, who decided to start a school in Kenya in 2006. 3 years later, Daraja Academy opened its doors to 26 students. Welcome, Jason and Jenny. We're so thrilled to have you on our show, and we can't wait to hear your story. Yeah. But first, a word about Seroptimus. Seroptimus are a local and international organization whose mission is to improve the lives of women and girls through programs leading to social and economic development. 2/3 of the world's uneducated children are girls. 2/3 of the world's uneducated adults are women. Women and girls still suffer from a lack of education. At Daraja Academy, at least 120 girls are guaranteed a high school education. Take a look.
A girl has legs to walk beyond the kitchen. A girl has eyes to see beyond the village. A girl has energy to fetch more than firewood. A girl has ability to carry more than water. Educate a girl, educate the whole family, and educate the whole world.
School is out of reach for 142 million young people living in poverty around the world. Most of those denied education are girls, many living in sub-Saharan Africa. But today in rural Kenya, girls in need receive a secondary education at a unique boarding school free of charge. Representing more than 25 tribes with a history of conflict, the girls unite here from all across the country. Top students dedicated to improving conditions for their families, communities, and the world. Welcome to Daraja Academy.
So, Jason and Jenny, you visited Kenya in 2006, and what happened that made you want to start a school on that visit?
So, in a way, I was very lucky because I had been bitten by the Kenyan bug at a very young age. So I was 11, 12 years old. I visited with my parents just on a very simple trip and got hooked. I just loved the country. I loved the people. I loved everything about it. In trying to convince my wife that we should start a school over there, we had to know if she was ready to live out of the country. So we actually went to Kenya, and it was a pretty incredible.
We went into the largest slum in East Africa called Kibera, and we saw poverty that I'd never seen before. And we were able to meet girls that couldn't go on to high school. And yet these children were so happy. They weren't aware of their poverty. They wore it with such dignity. And then we started asking this program, what are your needs? And they said, well, we really can't get these girls onto secondary. We can only scholarship them through primary education. And that's, I think, where the genesis of Daraja came from.
And what's difficult is traditionally, if a family can send a student on, it's almost always the boy. And so we're trying to break that cycle.
And do you want to share that story that you were telling me earlier about the father at the slum?
So, yeah, we actually, we're trying to go around and see other programs that we're educating kids because we were trying to find out what would it take. Is this a massive movement that we have to start? We're in Korogacho, which is also a Nairobi slum that happens to be built around the Nairobi dumps. So it's this enormous hole in the earth, full of garbage, people trying to make a living by picking through it. We visited a school, there was a priest running it, and it just happened to be testing day. And we had toured the school, looked around, seen the kids testing, very humble classroom. As we were walking out, a little girl had been waiting for the priest to come through the door, through the gate. She was fumbling with this tiny little nub of a pencil, about that large. She got up the nerve and she said, Father, I can't come to school today. And he said, why? Why aren't you in there right now? You should be testing already. Because this test made everything relevant from the year that she had learned. She said, because I didn't have the fee for the tests. We later found out, after he shepherded her in, that fee was about 27 cents. That this girl, her father had spent it. Turned out he was a drunkard. And it was going to eradicate a year of study for this little girl, and it just didn't seem okay to us. And at that point, we both became rock solid. We're going to do this. This isn't fair. That girl deserves a chance. Other girls like her do too.
Wow. And you were going to talk about why you decided to focus on girls.
Yeah, well, I think girls' education is a magic elixir for this world. In Kenya, 50% of the girls are unable to progress from 8th grade to 9th grade because of the financial needs of their families. Historically in Kenya, you have these different ethnicities, these different groups that kind of have a historical, not kind of, they do have a historical background of violence with each other. You've got girls who are seen and not heard. And so we came into this, and my first experience going into Kibera and meeting these girls, knowing they couldn't go on. I'm the first woman in my family to have a university education, and I just didn't think that it was fair that girls couldn't go on because they didn't have the finances to do it. So that's really why we chose girls.
And the reason we chose a boarding school was essentially we located our school where we were going to be teaching, and within a few months, there was election violence that happened after the 2008 election. And that violence was sort of driven by tribal issues, so by the different ethnic groups. There's a long history of why that is, but most of the roots are buried in colonialism. And so what we said is, instead of just taking girls from the local area, what if we created a small Kenya? And what if we brought girls from all around this country and we had them live together, learn together, and basically see each other as people instead of labels, that we could have an effect on that tribal violence and that history of problems. And what we have seen is that it works. It's amazing. They're teenage girls, so they fight over shoes and things like that, but they don't tend to fight over tribal issues. And in fact, they're working in the other direction of healing those.
So how do you specifically work with the girls on that?
So instead of hiding from those problems, we try to bring them to the forefront. We have an amazing class called WISH, which stands for Women of Integrity, Strength, and Hope. And basically, Jenny and two of our other incredible woman teachers put this curriculum together where the girl, for the first 2 years of her high school education, is looking inward at herself and how do I make myself a better communicator and leader. And the second two is out into her community and the world around her. And so throughout that whole process, we deal with issues like peaceful conflict resolution, just communication skills.
How to be a peace builder, how to do the proactive side of peace instead of doing just conflict resolution all the time. How do we stop conflict from happening? So we really help them understand their role as a leader within their communities. And that's a really important piece to our program. And so WISH is taught over the course of 4 years. Every Tuesday, they'll have a class in it, and it's a different topic each Tuesday. So that's how it runs.
And it's really important to the overall creation of the Daraja graduate. If you talk to most graduates, they say that WISH is really the pumping heart of Daraja Academy.
Interesting. Well, let's take a moment and watch a short video on some of the girls at Daraja arriving at school.
I remember the first day I arrived at Daraja. I remember how I was welcomed by the girls with a lot of hugs and shakes of hands.
I remember this moment that I joined Daraja when I met these people who are ready to brighten my future. I'm whom I am today because I was supported.
You see where the girls come from. No food during the day. The girls, they'll have to go very, very, very far to find water. You're like, oh God, what would happen then if this girl is brought into an environment where she can get all the basics?
In Swahili, Daraja means bridge.
I like the word bridge because when you walk, on that bridge, you're crossing. Daraja is a big community holding different tribes which are being brought together by love. The greatest lesson I've learned being here at Daraja, it is that there is no single step you can make without the help of other people.
The growing school is now a magnet for Kenya's brightest girls and a new generation of African women.
So after opening your doors to 26 students in 2009, how many students are enrolled today?
So we have 120 girls, about 30 girls per grade, so 9th through 12th grade. And we're hoping to grow at some point.
So tell us about the family tree or the structure when the girls arrive. It's pretty unusual.
Yeah, it is very unusual. And we see these family trees as just one more method of removing the labels off of these students that have these ethnic or tribal prejudices maybe ingrained in them. So a girl, when she arrives at the gate at Daraja Academy, she'll be met by her older sister, who would be a Form 2, so a 10th grader. That older sister has an older sister, and so on up the line. But we make sure that, let's say the girl arriving at the gate is Maasai, and she's a Catholic. Her older sister could be Borana and a Muslim. And the reason that we do this is because these family trees, they eat every meal together, they work on projects together, and they're building relationships that are based really on the inner workings of the person, as opposed to these titles that have been placed upon them. So we've seen it work, and we know that conflict is more difficult when you really know somebody and love somebody from that other group.
What is really wonderful with this relationship, it's a mentorship relationship, and our girls who are a sophomore in high school are watching the girls in their family tree who are finishing university and going on to support their families, and they're looking at these girls like, wow, I want to be like her.
Yeah.
So they've got this mentorship within the 4 years and then beyond,
Right.
which is really great.
Yeah, very perfect, isn't it? I would think it would be very hard to select the girls. And can you tell us about that process, and what are you looking for, and how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we drive around the whole country, and we are trying to find those girls who had no opportunity to go on to high school, that have the most capacity for leadership. And it's hard because we turn away about 9 out of 10 girls that we interview. And those girls, when you know they don't have a chance, it's brutal, and we have big arguments as we're driving across the countryside. It's the most physically exhausting, emotionally exhausting, yet rewarding opportunity, the thing that you can do in your life.
Our girls describe themselves as coming from a humble background. And for them, what that means is that they come from a home of material poverty. There's no running water in their home. There's no electricity. I think maybe we've had 2 girls in Daraja's history of almost 10 years that have actually had electricity in their home. And so we look at financial need of the family, we look at their academic scores, and we look at their potential for leadership. And you know, just this last year, I sat through an interview with a girl who was so just desperate for education, and she said, I don't even need a desk, I'll sit on the floor. And this is a girl who just has touched our heart so very much. And there's girls that we remember their names of that we weren't able to take because we only have a finite amount of resources. And you remember Dafra and Mercy and Jennifer, and you hope that they're going to be okay even when you can't take them to your school.
Because it can mean early marriage. It can mean, you know, working a job that you know you're better than that. And they don't get that shot.
We also know the type of education that Daraja can provide. We know the kind of girls that are coming out of our program and the potential they have to break the cycle of poverty in their life.
Yeah.
And that's a really difficult, I think selecting students is the
It weighs
most
on you.
challenging part of our job.
Yeah, it weighs on you.
Right, right. Now tell us that some of the stories of the girls. You mentioned that the one girl to me earlier.
Sure. I mean, we've got hundreds, I think. But one is Kate, you know, in one of our first video that we made, you know, she's about to leave to go to high school, and she's talking to her grandmother, you know, who's just this beautiful old Turkana granny with earrings and
that's the one we've seen today.
And so Kate was the second girl from her village ever to go on to high school. Kate has since gone through Daraja, she's gone through university, she's now teaching in Nanyuki, and Kate's dream was always to buy her mom, build her a new house. The house was mud and thatched roof, and she's only been working for 1 year. She's already done that. She's putting through 2 of her siblings through school right now. That, when we say a change maker, she's making change, and she's only been out of university 1 year. You know, our stats are showing that girls that graduate university in their first year are already making double the national average of income. So, yeah, a little education goes a long way.
And what about the girl that was about to become a housekeeper?
Okay, so Shamsia comes from this town called Marzabit, far up near the Ethiopian border. She had come from an almost middle-class family. Her father was a policeman. He got very sick, and they plummeted to the lowest of lower class. She had been starting work as a housekeeper. She had seen tribal violence, and she wanted to be part of the solution. So she left Daraja. She graduated. She got a very high score, one of the top 10 girls in our district. She went to University of Nairobi as an international relations major, and she got an internship at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. One of 50 kids, young adults that were attempting that, and she actually was doing some research for the ministry on Somalis that go back to Somalia, try and become beneficial citizens in Somalia, and she started writing a speech out. It turned out that Uhuru Kenyatta ended up reading that speech. This young lady's
Right, she's
Daraja
writing a
grad
presidential speech.
The president read it almost word for word.
And you asked her how she felt about it, and she said, "I was so proud."
Yeah, I can't wait to be out of school and be doing this for my job.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, yeah. I mean,
And she almost was a housekeeper.
she was almost a housekeeper.
And so I bet you have many more stories, but for the sake of time, what are some of the challenges you face at Daraja?
Oh, I think some of our largest challenges are funding. We can take 1 out of every 10 girls we interview. We wish we could do more. We'd really like to grow, but we're limited by our funding. But in order for us to grow, we need to also make sure that we've got a really stellar staff that we're growing with, and that we can ensure our school culture. So when I think about the challenges we face, it's okay, the challenges of growth that might be coming. I think those are our
We
biggest.
just need the word to get out more. You know, so basically if you're feeling this in your heart, you know, go to our website and join this fight.
Now, do you have an actual room at the facility to have more girls? Or would you have to build?
So we would have to build some classrooms,
Uh-huh.
and then eventually another dormitory. But we have plenty of acreage for that. It's a beautiful classroom school out in the Kenyan bush. You know, we drive past giraffe and water buffalo when we go buy our groceries. So there's plenty of room to grow. We just need to have the finances to do it.
So then your goals are to grow, what, 2-fold, 3-fold?
I think 3-fold would be ideal, because we do want it to have that small school, all the girls know each other family feel. But I do know that 120 girls is not enough. If we could graduate 90 of these girls who are writing presidential speeches and becoming teachers, we would see a country changing pretty quickly. I think we're on pace, and we're getting there.
So tell us about the educational model. Can you describe it and talk about the core values? I think you call them the pillars.
Yeah.
If you've got the bridge, what Daraja means bridge in Swahili. And so if you've got the bridge, to further that metaphor, you have pillars or your values that hold up the bridge. And for us, our values are about accountability, strong communication, respecting others, and improving every day. Those are our values, in addition to having integrity, strength, and hope as part of our WISH curriculum. And our model is very different than the traditional Kenyan school model. What we did is we were able to take a piece of this great curriculum over here and this great model over here. And so Jason calls it, you take how do you word it?
I say it's one piece Kenya, one piece American education, and then one piece every teacher, when they're teaching, thinks, man, I wish I could do this my way. I would do this, this, and this differently. So then we throw that in there, and it makes a Daraja. And I know in my heart that this could be replicated across sub-Saharan Africa, and we could see women really taking a different role in these countries. Someone said it very well from the United Nations. They said, what's neat about Daraja is, your graduates have actually seen the underbelly of life and they know what to fight for and what to change. Whereas a lot of the female politicians right now had chauffeurs driving them to high school. They don't really understand what it is that really is affecting the poor and the lives of the people en masse.
And so at Daraja, we're helping our students have a really strong academic base. We are helping them grow their leadership talents, and then we're helping them with life skills to help them move forward and to be competitive players in a job market. Because, you know, part of breaking the cycle of poverty is being self-reliant, being independent. So what we're doing is we have a transition program. So our girls go from 9th to 12th grade, traditional high school, and then they come back for about 4 months for a transition program. And during that time, they learn how to open a bank account, how to get an ID card, how to be prepared for a job interview, and then they do an internship for 2 months. So they're going to have real life experience when they go out there. And I think when you talk to our girls about the transition program, they say, oh my goodness, that internship taught me so much about what I didn't want to do in a profession. They taught me the skills I need to, and how so much of the things they learned, like Shamsia, the things she learned in the transition program helped her get this internship with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So it's kind of a wonderful cycle.
Yeah, very cool. And what about the community service requirement? I think you mentioned the girls need to put in 30 hours.
They do. The girls put in 30 hours minimum of community service when they're home on their term breaks. And mind you, it takes these girls sometimes 3 days to get to Daraja from home. They live in some pretty far out areas. And areas where girls don't play a real active role sometimes in the community. And so the way that the girls pay for their education is through that community service. And so what we wanted to see is keep your roots. There's some rich, beautiful pieces of where you come from. A mud hut doesn't mean it's a bad place. And so we want that love to stay there, no matter if she moves to Nairobi. That connection is very important to us. We don't want to see a brain drain from the areas where the girls come from.
Right. And that brings us to the oral history project.
That's a baby of mine. I love
yes,
that.
Tell us about that.
So one project that we've done over and over, we run call it project-based learning, okay, which brings together math and English and science. One of them was an oral history project where the girls, you know, there's a really valuable part of the Kenyan population that's 80 and over, and these are people that lived through colonial times. They lived through the Mau Mau and the independence movement. We don't want to lose what they have. And so a lot of these girls returned to their villages and they interviewed people that were 80 or over, their grandparents. And then they put together a book. Instead of just a test that they were going to take, what we graded them on was the production of something tangible. And they made a book, and we're going to continue adding to that. This year we're going to run it again, and hopefully we can create something very special. The girls heard stories that made history a real thing for them. I'm a history teacher first. And it's not just something that you're going to tick answers on a test. It's, wow, I can remember her talking about that during colonial times. I think it's incredible value.
So clearly you're both so passionate about this project. What advice do you have for anyone starting an idea like you in, whether it's education or any nonprofit?
Take the risk.
Do it.
Don't be afraid.
Do it.
Like just jump. It takes a lot of work, a lot of love, a lot of dedication, but do it. Don't just, I think we dreamed about Daraja for how many, we talked about it for a good 4 years before we actually did it. And we just kept talking about dreaming about it. What would we do? And we really got serious. There was one moment in time where we looked at each other and said, this is how we are going to make a difference in the world. And from that point on, we never wavered.
There's some things that you just can't see and then go back and have a soft pillow, feel the same, you know? And so I suggest you do it, because if you fail, so what? You tried.
That's right.
If you succeed, you did it, and that's really special.
Changed a life.
You're changing
or
lives.
120 lives. So we're running out of time, but I do want to ask, how much does it cost to send a Daraja girl to school for 1 year?
Yeah, so we take care of every need. It's boarding, medical, and then everything academic. It's $2,500 for 1 year at Daraja Academy, which might sound large, but in comparison to schools here in the United States, that's a drop in the bucket. And when you stop and you think about it, 4 out of 5 girls that go from the 8th grade to Daraja's 9th grade those girls end up getting a college scholarship or assistance. So that's really sort of an 8-year scholarship if you can help her through that. And we've seen groups that, 4 or 5 people got together to make that money up. And it's really negligible when you think of the outcome of finding that cash to help out that girl. So we would love to see more girls being sponsored. It's a neat relationship that gets built between the sponsee and the sponsor. They communicate quite a bit.
Oh, they do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's special.
So, any closing thoughts? Anything we forgot to mention?
You know what? I think that we need to talk about Mary Lane. I think that we have a girl who struggled so hard to get a high school education, as they all did. But she started her high school education and then had it stopped because her sponsor, not at Daraja, but who was he, a member of parliament?
Yeah, he was a politician who lost re-election. And so he decided, well, it's not as important to me right now. And so this poor girl who family didn't have the money to send her, she lost her opportunity. But she never quit. And she heard about a little school opening up called Daraja Academy. And she sent us a letter before we ever opened our doors saying, please give me a chance. And we did. That girl is now a teacher at Daraja Academy who teaches Wish to the girls that she was not that long ago. And you can't have a more powerful teacher than someone that's been through that process and knows what it feels like and what it is to be a Daraja girl than a Daraja teacher.
Oh, amazing story.
Yeah.
So before we close, I'd like to thank our production crew, Marcus Oakham, and Freda Kaplan, our producer. And now we'll leave you with just a short video in closing. Thank you to our viewers too.
Before I came to Daraja, I was not that confident. I would not talk in front of people. I was just very shy and I could not express my feelings. Sometimes I felt like women are not supposed to be heard in front of other people, in front of men. And so, but now I learned that I have a voice and people have to listen to my opinions. Wish is all about women of integrity, strength and hope.
Now you are in your final year. We are sending you out of Daraja to go and practice leadership out there, to go and change the world. I will hold your hand and walk with you. Friends will hold your hand and walk with you. And by the time you leave Daraja, you can speak to Kenya. Confidence.
Leaders, they are not born with skills. We have to learn with others.